The words "you come last" echoed in my mind long after they were spoken. I can still picture the scene: the warm glow of the dining room lights, the table set neatly for family dinner, and me standing there as my daughter-in-law delivered her verdict with a cold clarity that felt rehearsed. Jessica stood beside her, silent, her eyes fixed somewhere far from mine. I kept waiting for her to speak, waiting for her to defend me, soften the blow, say something that sounded like love. But all she said was a quiet, exhausted, "Mom, Brad is right." I didn't react. I didn't cry. I didn't beg her to remember the years I carried her through storms she thought would drown her. Instead, a numb calmness swept over me, heavy, suffocating, but steady. "Good to know," I murmured, pretending the words didn't carve themselves into me like markings on stone. I drove home in silence. The night outside was thick and still, but my thoughts spun relentlessly. My apartment, small, dim, unremarkable, greeted me the way it always did, with peeling paint, creaking floors, and a window that overlooked a gravel parking lot. A neon laundromat sign flickered through the glass, buzzing like a tired heartbeat. It wasn't much. Some nights it felt like nothing at all, but it was all I had left after giving away nearly everything. The memory of selling my home hit harder than ever. The house where Jessica grew up, the house filled with echoes of laughter, arguments, birthdays, quiet mornings, and long winter nights. After her father passed, she told me it was practical to sell it. She held my hand and promised I'd never be alone, promised we'd be a team, promised I'd move in with her family one day, and I believed her. I gave them nearly everything, $180,000 worth of everything. My entire safety net, my entire past. They bought a beautiful home with it, a backyard big enough for running children, a pool that sparkled under the sun, a kitchen where Jessica and I were supposed to share afternoons together. But that dream dissolved slowly, painfully, one ignored call, one canceled visit, one small rejection at a time. I became useful, not loved, present, not wanted, a ghost wandering through the life I financed. Standing alone in my apartment that night, I finally understood the truth. I had been replaced long before anyone said it out loud. Their home, the one I helped buy, never truly became mine. I walked through its halls often enough, but always as an outsider. Not unwanted, exactly, but certainly not belonging. I was the quiet presence who folded their laundry, wiped away spills during gatherings, and made sure the children didn't trip over forgotten toys. A helper, a background figure, someone convenient, not cherished. Jessica had once clung to me like I was her anchor in a storm. She used to cry into my chest after heartbreaks, whispering that I was the only one who understood her. I was the safe place she ran to, the certainty she trusted. I don't know when that version of her disappeared, but the woman standing in her place moved differently, more carefully, more timidly, as though bracing for judgment. Brad's presence had a way of shaping the air in the room. He didn't have to say much. His disapproval could be felt like a shift in temperature. Jessica adjusted herself to match him, her tone, her choices, even her silences, and each adjustment brought her a little further from me. What hurt most wasn't the distance, it was her willingness to normalize it. "Mom, we just need space," she'd say gently, eyes darting away. "Mom, don't come over without asking. Mom, we're busy right now." Each sentence layered over the last like thin sheets of frost, slowly freezing the warmth that once connected us. I told myself she was overwhelmed, stressed, juggling too many responsibilities, but deep down I knew it was something else. I was no longer a priority. One afternoon, while folding a basket of their laundry, something no mother should be expected to do in her child's home, I overheard Brad's voice downstairs. Sharp, certain, "She needs to stop acting like this is her house. She's here too much." I stopped folding mid-towel, my hands trembling. Jessica murmured something soft, something evasive. No defense, no protest, just a quiet, "I know." "I'll talk to her." She never did. Instead, the calls slowed. The visits thinned. My presence became something to be managed instead of welcomed. Still, I clung to hope like mothers often do, naively, stubbornly, painfully. Hope that the girl who once ran into my arms still lived somewhere inside her. Hope that she'd come back. But hope, I was learning, could cut deeper than any accusation. That day, the day everything snapped into focus, began so simply. A phone call. Jessica, voice strained, asking if I could watch the kids for a couple of hours. Of course I said yes. I always said yes. I grabbed my bag, took a deep breath, and drove to their home with the quiet eagerness of someone desperate to feel needed, even for an afternoon. The hours slipped by first slowly, then with an uneasy heaviness. The sun drifted lower. The kids got hungry, then tired, then restless. I fed them, bathed them, soothed them. I checked my phone again and again, each time feeling a small knot tighten in my stomach when there were no messages. By the time I put the children to bed, night had completely settled in. My worry grew into something heavy and shapeless. Not fear for them, fear for what this said about how little I mattered. When the front door finally opened, the clock read nearly midnight. Brad walked in first, smelling faintly of wine and expensive food. Jessica followed, exhausted, eyes puffy. I rose from the couch immediately, every part of me aching with the need for an explanation. "Oh, good, you're still here," Brad said flatly, brushing past me. Traffic was a nightmare. Jessica didn't meet my gaze as she slipped into the kitchen. The look on her face wasn't guilt, it was something worse. Avoidance, resignation, traffic. My voice came out thin, fragile. "For 6 hours," he shrugged, already annoyed. "We stopped for dinner. We needed a break." A break from what? From their children, from responsibility, from acknowledging me. Something inside me buckled. "You could have called," I whispered. Brad scoffed. "You're overreacting, your family. Helping shouldn't come with expectations." Family. He used the word like a leash. Jessica finally looked at me then, her eyes filled with a pleading weariness. "Mom, please, not tonight." Those 3 words sliced deeper than anything Brad had said. Not tonight. As if my hurt were an inconvenience, as if expressing my pain made me the problem. I gathered my things without a word. The air outside was cold, but it felt cleaner than the atmosphere inside their beautiful house. Walking to my car, I realized something heartbreaking. Love shouldn't require self-erasure, and I had been erasing myself for years. The week that followed felt strangely hollow, like the quiet after an earthquake, still, heavy, filled with the eerie uncertainty of what might collapse next. I kept expecting Jessica to reach out, to explain, to acknowledge even a fraction of what had happened. But my phone stayed silent, each day without her voice stretched painfully long. When she finally called, it wasn't to mend anything. There was no apology, no softness, just a casual request. "Mom, can you keep the kids this weekend? Brad and I have plans." Her tone was light, almost breezy, as though that awful night had never happened. Something inside me recoiled. "I can't," I said simply. There was a stunned pause. Jessica wasn't used to hearing that word from me. "What do you mean you can't? I have things I need to do." It wasn't a lie. I had things to do for my heart, my sanity, my dignity. But mostly, I needed to say no to the version of myself they had carved out of my life, one who was expected to give endlessly without receiving even basic respect. "Oh," she finally replied, clipped and cold. "We'll figure something out then." Her disappointment was sharp enough to feel through the phone. It confirmed the truth I'd been avoiding. I wasn't being loved, I was being used. That night, I pulled out an old photo album. It fell open to a picture of Jessica at 7 years old, her arms looped around my neck, her face beaming with unfiltered joy. I touched the image, tracing the outline of her smile. How does a bond like that fray so quietly? How does a daughter drift so far? Grief washed over me, not the kind that roars, but the kind that quietly drowns. Then came Brad's message. A long, self-righteous tirade claiming I was unstable, unpredictable, and emotionally draining. He accused me of stressing Jessica, of overstepping, of needing to know my place. He said if I wanted a relationship with them, I'd have to fall in line, fall in line. As if motherhood were a chain of command, as if I hadn't raised the woman whose life he now controlled. I deleted the message, not out of anger, out of clarity. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like freedom. 3 weeks passed before Jessica appeared at my door. No phone call, no warning, just a soft, uncertain knock that carried years of unsaid words. When I opened the door, she stood there with trembling hands and tear-swollen eyes, looking younger than she had in years. "Mom," she whispered, voice cracking around the edges. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, like someone afraid the floor might give way beneath her. Her eyes drifted across my small apartment, the peeling paint, the second-hand furniture, the simplicity of it all. Guilt flickered across her face like a shadow. We sat. The air was heavy, but she finally spoke. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "For that night, for not defending you, for letting things get so bad." I swallowed hard. Hearing the apology was like pressing on a bruise, painful but necessary. "I love you, Jessica," I told her gently, "but love can't survive if I'm the only one carrying it." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I know. I should have been there for you. I let everything get in the way." This time, she didn't make excuses. She didn't blame stress or circumstances. She took responsibility finally, painfully, honestly. We talked for a long time. About boundaries, about respect, about love that had gone quiet and needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. She didn't ask me to babysit. She didn't ask for favors. She simply asked if we could try again. And I found myself nodding, not because I was desperate to return to old patterns, but because healing isn't born from punishment. It's born from truth. When she left, the apartment felt both empty and strangely warm. Our relationship wasn't fixed, not even close. But for the first time in years, the next chapter didn't feel like a burden. It felt like hope, a small, fragile hope, but real.